I am Steve Clark with the League of American Bicyclists, and happy to be here. This is, I think I was telling some people, this is a 57th bicycle-friendly community visit. For this year, starting in January, and it's great to be here.
Well, a hearty welcome to you.
So, I think this might be the smallest community, 25,000. I think I've done a couple 35,000 communities. Mankato is about 35. And this is a lovely day, right? So we're going to talk today about how does Athens become a bicycle-friendly community. And I'll let you get settled. So this doesn't really show very well.
Do you want to shut the lights?
Yeah, let's shut the
Yeah,
lights off. If that, I think that would be way better. So this is Athens, right? Just we did this today? No. You know what this is from? This is like the most incredible experience. This is from Detroit. It's called the Slow Roll. And every Monday night, every single Monday night, people just gather. Thousands of people, and they just take to the streets. It's not an organized event. I mean, it's organized, but it doesn't have, nobody went to the trouble of getting police escorts or anything like that. It was just sort of this organic, community-driven, spontaneous thing that occurred, and now it just draws people from all over the Detroit area. And I only have this photo because I don't have a photo from today because my photos weren't downloading for some reason. My computer got frozen. But anyway, it's a cool picture, and I think it epitomizes, people happy on a bicycle, which is how we want people to be in a community. And that, there's lots of ways to create bicycle friendliness, and one way is just to invite people to come out and ride, right? And you do that all the time. So the program I mentioned this morning started around 2000, was really pretty low-key back then. You filled out a questionnaire, maybe there were 10 questions, and you'd get back a certificate. By 2007, it was a much more robust, comprehensive approach, lots of questions, lots of communities applying, and we had good representation from all over the country in terms of places that were truly bike friendly, and these places were very proud to be designated as such. But by 2013, it just really took off, and as of spring of 2014, 301 communities are now bicycle friendly, and over 700 applications. So again, most communities that apply do not actually get the designation. And we're going to talk about just where you're at in terms of, what's the potential for you to become bicycle friendly here in Athens. But there's quite a few. I mean, I was in Cleveland yesterday. They're silver. Columbus is bronze. Dayton, I believe, is bronze now. I'm there this afternoon. So you do have some Ohio cities that have been working to improve conditions for bicyclists and making some good headway and are being recognized for that. And earlier somebody was asking, why would we want to become bike friendly? And actually nobody hears. There was a traffic engineer yesterday in Cleveland said, well, so why does this really matter? And maybe you guys can answer that question. Why does it matter? Why would you want to be bike friendly? Is that a goal?
Yes.
Is that why we're here today? And is it a goal because you want to get the designation, or because you want your community to become more bicycle friendly than it already is?
Yes.
Both? More in both? I mean, yeah. So you're not satisfied where you're at right now. You want to see it better. Right? I'm going to show you a lot of examples of communities I've been to give you ideas of how to make things better here in Athens. And then I'll give you what I think, where you're at. But one example, I shared this earlier today. The first day of my job, I'm traveling to Washington, D.C. I pick up the U.S. Airways magazine, and there's a story about Tucson. The very first paragraph, Tucson's a bicycle-friendly community, gold designation by the League of American Bicyclists. So and everywhere I go, it's like in cities' tourism packets, oftentimes the bicycle is the icon that is being in the tourism window that's trying to draw people. So, and we know that, especially young people, they're looking for places that are bicycle friendly. They want to have transportation choices. It's the best way to promote health and the environmental values that we have and just a higher quality of life. It's an easy way. As Trek, I think the president of Trek, John Burke, perhaps coined this. He said, the bicycle is a very simple solution to many complex problems. And that's exactly right. When you think about whether it's public health or it's environmental issues or traffic congestion or energy consumption, all those things. The bicycle is just this thing that's there that we're not really taking advantage of. It's amazing. You go someplace like Copenhagen where more miles are being pedaled than driven, and you see just what a potential resource this is. They figure $400 million a year they save in healthcare costs alone because of the fact that 80% of their residents bicycle regularly. That they're so healthy, and you look at their, in terms of, their hospital admissions and everything else. It's incredible how much healthier they are than the average person in America. So here's the science behind the designation. Now, no, this is a terrible slide. Don't try to read it. I will send you this as a PDF. But basically, it's to show there is actually it's not just a subjective analysis, but we do look at, key outcomes in terms of fatalities, crashes, and overall ridership. We want to see what kind of educational efforts you're making, what kind of encouragement you're doing. The 5 E's, right? Comprehensive approach, enforcement, education, engineering-wise. And so, like, for example, in Boulder, Colorado, 98% of their arterials have bike lanes. And, in a place like Portland, it's almost 50%. And that's a really big city. So we look at those kinds of metrics, whether or not can a person go from point A to point B as efficiently, as conveniently, as safely as somebody in a car. And that's really what it comes down to. Do you have a network that makes it as easy for me to bike as it would be for me to drive? And if you do, you're going to see a lot more people bicycling, right? And then you can take it to one step further than that. Is it easier to bike than to drive? And that's what they're doing in places like Copenhagen and the Netherlands. They're actually going out of their way to make it easier, and they're timing their signals for the speed of the bicycle, not for the speed of, how fast they want the average motorist to go. So anyway, we look at all those kinds of things. Again, why is the bike-friendly community thing important? Well, mostly because when you have a bicycle-friendly community, you also have a higher quality of life, and you have a healthier city. So, Quality Bike Products did a analysis and they found that they could save $170,000. They did save $170,000 over the course of, I think, a 4-year period, because they paid their employees to bike to work. So, $3 a day if you walk or bike to work, and that actually, instead of, people thought they were crazy, like, you're spending all this money just to encourage people to bike. And it turned out that they were able to drop, at a time when most other corporations had their health costs just going through the roof, they actually decreased their healthcare costs. So because people were healthier, they missed work less often, and they also said that their workers were more productive once they got to work because they had that. Well, because everybody here, I rode today, right? You feel a lot better. That's why you can listen to me and not just fall asleep. No, just kidding. I do have to say, this is, going back to that earlier slide, where we had this huge number of this interest that we have in this program. The league has, until this year, it's always been just looking at applications, and we have local reviewers, and we have like a team of 4 or 5 people at the office that would read all the applications. But this is the first time that we've been able to have somebody like myself go around to various, well, we're doing 100 cities a year. I'm doing 75 a year, and then 25 more are being done by other people, but from the office. But this is the first time we've been able to do that, and I want to say thanks to Trek for making that happen. Trek saw that this could actually be a valuable resource to actually have somebody, you could say, ground truthing the applications, but also just meeting people face to face and really finding out what you're doing and getting a feel for what's happening out there and helping cities rise to that next level. So part of my visit, most of my visits are with cities that are already bicycle friendly, and I help them go from bronze to silver to gold, or gold to platinum. And now there's a 5th category, which we talked about earlier, which is diamond, right? All right, so the 5 E's. We've said, you already know what they are, so I'm not going to repeat it, but I do like this slide because this has 2 of the E's in there, at least 2, maybe 3. Guess what 2 it might be? Engineering, because it's, traffic engineer decided to put those markings. It corresponds to the MUTCD, the Mandatory Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and the sign as well. Good engineering work. Somebody like Andy did that. What else does it do? Which a lot of engineering does do. You might say it encourages more people to actually get on their bicycle and ride this street. Sometimes that happens with Sherrills. Typically, bike lanes will attract more people, but Sherrills will make the people who are already bicycling a lot happier and feel safer. But what else does it do besides encourage? It educates. Because why? How is this educational?
Helps motorists put out there.
Yeah, I mean, typically, a lot of people are taught from a very young age that you should ride as far to the right as possible, and we find people riding right in the door zone, right? So this is a way that you're educating bicyclists and motorists that bicyclists have the right to just be in that center of the lane, because that lane is too narrow to be shared safely by motorists sharing that lane unless they have to pass. They have to change lanes to pass the cyclists. So it's an educational tool also. So across the country, bicycling has taken off. We see that, for the BFCs, the bicycle-friendly communities, the increase is much greater than it has been just on average. Now, yes, the application for this year is already passed. Where are you guys, do you think, in terms of ridership? Davis, California, another college town, they're almost 20%. I bet Athens could, maybe not in the winter time, but during September, you should be able to get 10, 15%, I would guess. Davis could be 20 or 19. So these are the top cities, mostly college cities, college towns. In terms of larger cities, it's I think the largest, Portland is the largest city that has more than 5% mode share. Minneapolis, though, is not far behind at 4.5. Portland's about 6.5%. Minneapolis is 4.5%. The last I checked, I think in terms of the 2000 census, you were about 3%. Does anybody know what you are like with the ACS now? I mean, there's going to be a huge margin of error with the ACS now. But in 2000, you were around 3%, and then your walking was like over 40%. So you have one of the highest, and this was discussed a little bit this morning, one of the highest walking community rates in the country. And really bicycling, you're higher than most. You might be the highest in terms of Ohio cities for bike community at 3%. And maybe it's more than that now. So when new people join, you want to just quickly say who you are? I don't know if you want to know. I know I started with all you guys.
Well, I'm Mo Perkins. I'm from the Post.
Okay, great.
Greg Polzer,
Great. Oh, third city council person.
James Kristen Isley, City Council.
4 city council persons. Wow. That might be a record.
It's a quorum vote.
Can't say anything more.
I tend to go to work, so we don't have. Oh, okay.
Okay. I've had 3 city council members in previous visits, but I don't think I've had 4. Although I did, they asked me to talk in front of the entire city council, but that's different. That was in Davis, by the way, and San Jose as well. So anyway, so you can see who you're competing with in terms of bicycle numbers. And this is just the journey to work. It's not the journey to school. It's not going to restaurants or going shopping. It's just the trip to work, because that's the only metric that we have that's consistent across the country, because it's collected by, again, the U.S. government through the American Community Survey. And it's got its limitations. You know, it's if you do a bus trip 3 miles and a bike trip 2 miles on your way to work, you can only count the bus trip. So it doesn't do a real good job of taking into account multimodalism. Now I'm just going to show you some photos of other places that are either on the brink of becoming bicycle friendly, like Wheat Ridge, or have already become designated bicycle friendly. But Wheat Ridge, this is one of the few things that they've done so far, but it's a great example of redesigning a street and making it really transform the area. So first thing they did, this was a 4-lane roadway, about 15,000 cars a day, and they decided they could get by with 3 lanes. In fact, it actually operates better with 3 lanes than it did as 4 lanes. 1 lane in each direction and the shared center turn. And then you've got some of those here, right? You've got the shared center lane for left turns, 1 lane in each direction. We'll talk more about road dyes, but so that allowed for bike lanes. Not only did it allow for bike lanes, in this particular spot, they had room for diagonal parking. But notice how they're doing their diagonal parking. Back in, because that is much safer for the people bicycling than somebody. You can't really see the people in the bike lane if you're backing out from the diagonal parking space. Then a little parklet, dining area, that, great for sales tax revenues. And then bike parking in that street space as well. Just transform the area. People said this used to be just the most hostile, high-speed, cars, and people couldn't imagine this transformation. But when you do these things, it's also like, oh wow, this is so much better. But trying to sell something like this ahead of time, unless you have, some success to begin with, it's hard to sell. This is done in Oakland, 25,000 cars a day, a 4-to-3 conversion. The other thing that's nice about the 4-to-3 conversions is that when you don't need the left turn lane, the center part, you can create a median or a pedestrian refuge island. Again, this is transformative in Oakland. This is Lakeshore Drive. They still have a lot of cars on this corridor. It's a major corridor, but now they just have a lot more people. People bicycling, people walking, old, young, people from all walks of life. And the pedestrian refuge island also is a safety improvement, right? Because now people have a place they can stop when they're trying to cross the street. It allows for this mid-block crossing. Well, maybe it's not mid-block crossing. The FHWA has a website called their 9 Proven Safety Countermeasures. One of the things that we saw out there today is in that a roundabout. They have been proven to reduce crashes for all road users. Road diets are also one of their 9 proven safety countermeasures. So there's 29% what's called a crash reduction factor. And again, this is for all types of crashes, all road users. So you can sell road diets just by saying, we no longer are going to have these 4-lane configurations through this city because they are inherently dangerous. We know that. There's no argument about that. You convert 4 lanes to 3 lanes, it becomes safer for everybody. For pedestrians, for bicyclists, and for motorists. And you can do this, again, Oakland proved you can do this with roads with maybe 25,000 cars a day. Typically, I mean, FHWA in their website says any street that has 20,000 or less should be a candidate for a road dive. And I'm sure you've got some 4-lane configurations.
We don't, actually.
You don't?
There's not a single 4-lane configuration roadway this.
Well, then, never mind. But you should be thinking about, like on State Street, right out here, it's 5 lanes. So Sacramento, I'll show you a picture of Sacramento, where, well, not there, there. That was a 5-to-3 conversion. So they had 5 lanes. They just decided, you know, do we really need center turn lane and these 2 lanes? And it was about 20,000 cars a day. And what they did is just give a nice wide bike lane. This is not totally marked yet because it's totally new. And then they buffered it on the parking lane side. So, but yeah, look at this, San Francisco. The cities that are really like capturing people's attention and in terms of their own residents as well as visitors coming in are cities that are starting to just do these signature projects like San Francisco using green paint. Chicago, you were just there, you saw a lot of this. Not only, this is a buffered green lane. Of course, the bike's sharing right next to it. Further up, it's protected, so there's like physical barriers between the moving traffic and the bike. This is on their most popular, this is Market Street, one of their most famous streets in San Francisco. Nice and wide. I mean, you can see how this really is going to attract more bicyclists, right? And it has. And they've proven it. They also have this thing called the Eco Totem. It's this big, it looks like a totem, it's very large. And every time a bicyclist crosses it, it registers what number they are. So when I went through here at 8:30 in the morning, on a Thursday morning, in April, I was 832. And wow, it's like, as a bicyclist, it makes you realize that, first of all, you count, you're important. It gives you a warm fuzzy, right? That, hey, 832, that's pretty cool. And then on the bottom, they actually give you the annual count. So just another neat thing you can do.
How often do you see the green painted bike lane? I mean, that looks to be a really good idea, but how often do you see it?
So this is happening Lexington, Kentucky, Nashville, Oakland, San Francisco, Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's happening everywhere, more and more. And some places are like, oh, we're not so sure. Corvallis, Oregon, their engineers like, oh, do we really want to mess with green? But Phoenix, Arizona, they just did green. What it seems, I mean, I wouldn't do it everywhere, but where you downtown areas, I think it makes a lot of sense. Not on your brick. Don't mess with your brick.
Sticks to brick.
Yeah, don't mess with your brick. But in other places where you're trying to just like really get people excited about bicycling, it does seem to make a difference. You can't help but notice that, wow, this is a bike area. No, I mean, you want to use a slurry. I mean, there's good products now that are very slip resistant, whether it's rainy or not, and long lasting. Some of the earlier products had some issues, but they've resolved those. So, yeah, something to think about anyway. But here's what I was talking about to some of you, is what's called advisory bike lanes. You don't have room for a regular bike lane on both sides and still have like 10-foot travel lanes remaining. And so what you do is you just dash the bike lanes, get rid of the center stripe altogether, and you can do this. MUTCD allows you to do this if you have fewer than 6,000 vehicles a day. On this particular street in downtown Minneapolis is 4,700 cars a day. So we got rid of the center stripe, we put in dashes, put in these markings. Why would we do that? Well, here's what we found out, and this was kind of pretty amazing. One, bicyclists went further from the door zone, riding their bikes. We wanted that to happen. Great. Two, motorists gave more room when passing bicyclists. Wonderful. Another benefit. Three, we doubled the number of bicyclists actually on this corridor, which we thought was pretty amazing. All we did was add some dashes, right? And a little bike symbol. More importantly, it used to be about 70% of bicyclists were on the sidewalk, and that dropped down to 2%. So, huge, because sidewalk riding we knew was causing some crashes here. But the thing that was most astonishing with this treatment, we had to evaluate because it was experimental, FHWA said, we had to, this is new and different. The thing that we did not anticipate were the crashes. So typically, this would see about 8 to 10 crashes per year, mostly car crashes. After this is implemented, there has not been a crash. It's gone down to 0. So it's like, all it is paint. You're getting rid of the center stripe. It's like magic. I mean, it's like, I don't know. So I would encourage you, if you've got some places where you don't have room for bike lanes, and you want to encourage bicycle riding, this is another great little thing to do that it doesn't, it's no cost to it really. So we stole the idea from the Netherlands, and they're doing this everywhere. This is also a two-way street. So basically, if there's not a bicycle in this area, cars can use this street, or they can use that space. Unlike if it's a solid bike lane, you're not supposed to ever go in there unless you're making a right turn. So it just reinforces what the law already says. Bicyclists have the right to use the street. You can't run them over when they're there. When they're not there, you can use that space. So they just, people drive a little bit more prudently. It just sets different visual cues for people how to behave. Here's the use of the green paint for what's called a priority bike lane, although it's not really a bike lane, it's really just saying, bikes, you can take the full lane here, and it's reinforcing the sharrows. Now, what I notice in Athens, you have places where you have just the bike lane, like going up the hill, you have the bike lane, and then nothing, no indication for what you do if you're on the other side of the street. And what I would recommend is that you put in sharrows for that downhill stretch. You don't need the green paint necessarily. Brookline, Massachusetts, instead of using green paint to reinforce the sharrows, they're using dashes just where the sharrows are. Sharrows it's just a short version of shared lane marking. But then remember that first slide that has that sign, bikes may use full lane. Do that with the sharrows. But you want to do that going down the hill so that people know that they're able to do that. And even Mill Avenue, I think it was Mill Avenue, there's bike lane on one side, but where the parked cars are, there's nothing. Is that Mill? No. Yeah. That would be another spot to put the sharrow in the center of the lane, or that might be a good candidate for an advisory bike lane. I'm not sure. Ultimately, the best solution on Mill is to be able to remove the on-street parking completely and have bike lanes on both sides of the street. It's a little bit, I don't know. Maybe it's
All I've been talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know you never really want to get into that whole battle between on-street parking versus the bike lane because it can be pretty ugly, as you know. But really, when you think about it, safe access for bicyclists should be a higher priority, more important than the convenience of somebody putting on their own private thing in the public space. But Tucson, we're going to switch now to enough with engineering type stuff. So education's always like a challenge. And if you say, come to a bike safety class, you're not going to get, you probably tried this, Peter, right? We're offering a bike safety class. How many people show up when you say bike safety class? Not too many. Because everybody knows, come on, you're not going to teach me how to ride safely. In Tucson, what they do, they have LCIs. How many LCIs do you have? League certified instructors, cycling instructors. So that would be something you'd want to maybe do. One thing, when you're certified by the league to be an instructor, you're covered by our insurance program. And it's the only nationally recognized training program where we have instructors, they're accredited, and they go out and they're covered by insurance and lead groups of people and teach safety. In Tucson, they have a dozen ambassadors, mostly volunteers, but 3 or 4 paid ambassadors, all certified by the league as safety instructors. And they go around doing, they go to farmers markets, they go into campus, they have the pop-up bike station that they can set up, tools, bike repair stand, maps, they give out, but they also just provide instruction. And you had a nice, the bike library, that was a nice brochure showing some, good sort of advice on safety tips, how to ride safely. And you probably, in the map too, has some of that. So wherever you can incorporate the safety message is important, and I see that you're already doing that. But this is, going to where the people are makes a big difference. We talked a little bit about the Safe Routes to School initiative this morning. Palo Alto, if you want to look at their website, they are the model community for Safe Routes to School. 70% of the kids at some of their schools are biking to school. Across every elementary, middle school, and high school, it's 50%. That's where they're now at 50% of the kids are biking to school, and it's like 35 or 40% are walking to school. So the number of parents driving their kids to school is really under 10%. And it's a truly, and it wasn't always that way. It used to be like so many other American cities where 95% of the kids were being dropped off at school by the parents. And why? Because it was not safe for my kid to ride to school. Why is it safe for your kid to ride to school? Because so many parents are driving their kids to school, right? So it's like, yeah. Palo Alto figured out a way. They started doing these things called bike trains, group rides to school, training parents, training teachers, recruiting volunteers, and it's been going on now for 2.5 years, and it's just been this amazing success story. And the kids are happy, they love it. You come in and it's just like these fenced-in areas for bike parking. It's just amazing. You have to go and see it to believe it, because it's just and it's not like they have any special facilities for a lot of these schools. These kids are riding, like you saw on that slide, just regular roads. So quite a bit. At 3rd grade, they teach. So every 3rd grader learns how to ride a bike. They provide bikes if the kids don't have them, and they get on-bike instruction for safe riding. All right, so 10 strategies quickly in terms of how do you make things work and really boost. Here's some of the things that we're looking for. You've already got the plan. You've got some of the building blocks in place. But basically, you've got to create that safe, dedicated space. And the more you can actually delineate that space through bike lanes, protected, buffered bike lanes, off-street trails, the better. Reduce speeds wherever you have that kind of an issue where just, these corridors that sort of invite the high speed, hey, I'm going to just go as fast as I can mentality. You want it, because it also makes crossings difficult. At 40 miles per hour, the chance of being killed as a pedestrian crossing the street or as a bicyclist, when a car is going 40 miles per hour, your chance of being killed is 85%. At 20 miles per hour, it's 5%. So as speeds increase, the severity of the crashes and the frequency of crashes increases exponentially. Tom, you're the mathematician, so you can probably do a formula showing what that exponential curve looks like, right? Anyway, it's exponential. It's not just like, it's really, so the difference between even a 30 mile per hour corridor and a 35 mile per hour corridor is the difference between life and death. The majority at 35 are going to be killed. At 30, the majority won't be killed when the same collision happens. Just think about that. Expand bike parking, huge. I mean, every place, again, you know, if there isn't something at that designation that people can walk their bike to, it's a huge barrier. We know that. It also, when you have bike parking, like the bike corral that's in the street, it's just a constant reminder to others that, hey, I can do this. This is being encouraged here. Do you have a pretty good bike parking?
Well, it's gotten better. There's been changes to city code in recent years that require particular establishments, like new developments that are greater than 5,000 square feet, has to put in a certain number of bike spaces as part of their construction.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, retrofitting older places is some of the
Yeah.
problem and challenges. There is some public spaces here and there and then the one thing is, you know, public infrastructure. The police don't really enforce. And it's not like it's not advertised per se, but the police don't enforce people not being allowed to tie up their bikes or to lock up their bikes to a piece of public infrastructure. So if you lock up your bike to a parking meter, or if you lock up your bike to a street light for, you know, a day or a half day to go into a place, you know, it doesn't get taken. Now, if you leave it there for a month and a half, then the police cut it off and impound it. But so, as a method of encouraging, or at least not discouraging riding, that's allowed. It's not just that, hey, go lock your bikes up.
In Boulder, they actually have parking meters that, you know, people have to put coins into, and they created on those parking meters an addition for a bike rack, and it actually says bikes park free. So, you know, it's like kind of almost rubbing it in, like, oh yeah. And, you know, they're not worried about the person putting the money into the parking meter that has to, like, maybe work around the bicycle to do it. So get the intersections right. I mean, a lot of communities, you wait a long time to get across the street. Sometimes the signals aren't triggered by the bicyclist. So just making sure that a cyclist can make that light go from red to green is important. And where you have trail crossings especially, make sure you have high visibility crosswalks and trail warning signs, as well as maybe, you know, the rapid flashing beacons to help people get across the street. Education and empowering, we talked about lots of different ways of doing that. Bike sharing, is that something you're looking at? Maybe from the, you know, it'd be kind of cool from campus. You have the library program, but I mean, having these stations like the San Francisco example, from campus to downtown, it's a small community, it might really take off. It might be kind of cool. Okay, looking at that.
The university is talking about that. They have one building that's set for an update, and they're actually working one station in hopes of introducing more when this time goes on.
General Motors of all places have introduced bike sharing now for their employees to get from one building to another building. They've got these bike stations and they're really promoting. They say, you know, cars are great, but they don't make sense for these short trips, and so bike sharing is the way to go. Mixed use development. Paul mentioned that's happening now. Hey, did Paul's still with us? No. Yeah, good Paul. There you are. I know. All right. It's been a long. Yeah. Hi, Paul. So you want to say anything about mixed use development?
We encourage it. Our ordinances, it's complicated math because our development is driven by the appetite for off-campus student housing. It's a very profitable endeavor in Athens. So we've been struggling with how to even guarantee that some of our business zones, we're not losing business strictly to residential. So we've been working on that right now. But as a whole, mixed-use development is the best way to get people out of cars and on their feet and on their bikes. Puts people closer to where they work. It gives people live closer to where they shop and where they eat and where they go out. So as a whole, that's the best direction. We do have some very good mixed-use areas. We didn't see most of uptown, Fourth Street area, but if we were to continue driving or riding north on Fourth Street where we stop at the top of that hill, it's very diverse. It's got a lot of retail, restaurant, county courthouse, city halls up there, a lot of office space, and then second, third, fourth floor of our apartments.
Oh, perfect.
It works really well.
We have a parking garage located in the center that's being looked at in terms of it's needing to do some repairs or whatever, and not only plug-ins for EV vehicles, but I think we really need to put some lights.
Good.
Because it's under the roof too.
Yeah.
And, that's the last thing we like, we always need to have a light.
Right. No, covered parking is really important.
And we had, Steve, Andy mentioned that we changed some parts of city code with respect to providing bicycle parking. For any new commercial project, they have to have, I think, one bike parking space for every 1,000 square feet. For residential developments, if you have anything greater than 3 units, you are required, 3 apartments, you are required to provide parking for 50% of your bedrooms. And if you have more than 18 units, half of your parking, you have the minimum needs to be covered. We have seen some success.
Do you have many events happening that draw pretty large crowds?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, first of all, there's the universe.
Yeah. So yes, they're doing
5 football games a year,
Yeah.
or whatever, and then
So-
around town, there's a Halloween event.
So Santa Monica Silver Community, they implemented in their ordinance clause that it requires event organizers to have monitored bicycle parking. I think it's either if they expect more than 500 or maybe it's 1,000, I'm not sure. But basically, bike parking delay service, and people, it's become such a big hit now. People just realize that they can just bring their bike. Somebody's gonna take care of. They don't even bring a lock with. It's all like a fenced area, and the people who are doing that are the folks that are also doing bike education. So it's kind of a fee for service with them. They run the bike center in town. Anyway, it's just an easy way, again, to just like encourage bicycling and make it as easy as possible. And when the event organizers just realize that this is something, a lot of event organizers they get it already and the biggest headache is all the cars. And if they can get more people bicycling to the events, it helps everybody, right? We can turn on the light if you want.
Sure.
Because that's it. Again, these trips are made possible by Trek, so I want to thank Trek for their sponsorship of these trips. But we have some time. I wanted to hear from you in terms of what you feel like can be done in the next year or two. It sounds like you got some things in the works in terms of infrastructure that's really good.
That list that I passed out earlier is kind of a synopsis, at least, detailed more over the last 10 years of what we've done and what we were planning to do, infrastructure-wise, big-ticket infrastructure-wise. One of the things that I would just say, and this is kind of a question to you and kind of a question to my peers and community members here, is some of the barriers that I experience as an engineer attempting to kind of force the shared multimodal environment on a population is resistance from certain demographics, law enforcement, and not all of them. I have a very enlightened chief in my police department, but the run-of-the-mill officer, is pretty jaded about students in general and disregard for traffic laws when they're a pedestrian or a cyclist. So buy-in from law enforcement on both departments, OU and Athens Police, and fire for like also. Another one is the schools. We talked about safe routes to schools. We've been successful with safe routes to schools infrastructure programs in the city on the engineering in the east side, but not the encouragement education. There has not been a funded endeavor that I know of that's been successful in that program on the encouragement, education thing. And what it comes down to is, my child will get kidnapped if I let him walk to school.
So it's not even traffic safety.
It's not traffic safety. no,
Personal.
It's I don't want to let him out of my sight until he gets into that front door.
Yeah.
And and I think a champion in law enforcement of this effort and a champion in schools specifically. I think
Yeah.
Ohio University is on board. So for the college age population, I think we got it, and there's effort there, and there's a lot of initiative there. So I guess, and that's just kind of a question and a talking point for my peers on how do I get that buy-in to help further our goals.
Sounds like that Palo Alto is, like, one of the sports that would really need to review that, because obviously, I lived in Hager England for periods of time, and of course, it's all biking.
Yeah.
It's a huge, we bike every single day, I bike my kids to school, and so I think that those education efforts you do have to give to school, and they also have these training programs, where every kid, now Palo Alto sounds like maybe they take their PE class, third graders, and everybody gets it.
They all get it.
So, it sounds like it has to be that kind of
Incorporated.
effort. Yeah.
I mean, do you think you have sort of you could get like a core group of people, committee maybe start with to work at, in some ways it has to be, in some schools it happens because of a key parent at that school who takes the initiative and talks to the principal and talks to some other teachers and talks to other parents, and they make something happen. In other situations, it's more of in Palo Alto, they actually hired 2 people through the city, they're called Safe Routes to School coordinators, to actually recruit the parents and work with teachers and talk to them. So they did it. It was city driven, but then now it's all pretty much it's being.
We already have a committee structure for this.
We do, we
have a
did.
school safety group
Yeah.
that I sit on, and that the superintendent and some of his staff and principals sometimes attend. So we could somehow incorporate some of our biking folks to maybe come and discuss this issue.
In 2009, we did the school travel plan that we had to do, and that was a collaborative effort between the district and the city. We actually did hire someone who's a former teacher to kind of help us build it, and because he knew the people at the school, and it was a temporary thing, and it was a fee-for-service type activity, and so we built that, and we've kept that school travel plan going, and that's how we've been successful in getting funded on several of the programs. So that's a good basis, work off of that, and then the school safety group, and I'll tell you what triggers the school safety group, is the school shootings across the United States is what gets the people excited about, boy, we gotta do school safety. So if you can somehow marry those two, the school travel plan with the school safety group, that might be the catalyst for creating that group of champions that would support it.
And for anything, any initiative, you need to have the goals and objectives pretty much. You have to have consensus. Like, this is what we're trying to achieve here. How do we do it? At first, you have to decide what is it you're trying to achieve. And maybe, do you think there will be interest at that school level among parents to actually increase the number of kids riding to school? Or will it just like, we don't care about this, we like driving our kids to school? Can you actually have it as a community goal to get more kids walking and biking to school? Because if you don't have that as a goal, it's not going to happen. So that's the first thing, make it a goal, and have a vision. Sometimes that's where the council members really play. The communities that are doing the most is because they have elected officials that are like, this is what we're all about here, and this is why, and using some of their political capital to say, we can do this, folks. We can do this. And then creating ordinances that also help with that. But we make it right now really easy for people to drop their kids off at school, even though it's causing a lot of problems. Kind of go out and our. But other things. So enforcement, and you talked about that. Cleveland just had a training program for their officers that they brought in. Peter Fluke, who was a former law enforcement officer who does bike safety training for the cops. And that seemed to help in Cleveland. You know, you're still not going to get everybody totally on board, but having some of that training is important. Again, it's like this: is this important, or is this not important? And there's lots of things that are, you know, this is not the number one issue maybe in every community, but just having officers at least sensitized to what the. So my job in Boulder, I actually had every single crash report delivered to me that involved a bicyclist or a pedestrian with a motor vehicle. And so I would do a report annually looking at, you know, what caused the crash, who was at fault, where the location was, the age of the person riding the bicycle, gender, all that kind of stuff. It was a comprehensive report. And then I used that report to basically educate the officer. So once a year, I could meet with all the officers. I mean, it was a series of meetings because they don't all work at the same time. Typically, it was between shifts. And I'd have 15 minutes, and sometimes they even give me a half an hour, just to talk about the causes of crashes and what types of enforcement would make the biggest impact on decreasing those crashes. So typically, it would be, you know, we had a lot of right hooks, right turning motorists failing to yield the right of way to the straight through bicyclists, left turning motorists not yielding to the straight through bicyclists, and then bicyclists not using lights at night, and also wrong way riders. So those are 4 things that we really wanted the police to work on. And they could do it year round, but we said at the beginning of the school year, when the students are coming back to see you, you know, a couple weeks in September, that would be the time to do the selective enforcement campaign. Get the media involved so that they know bicyclists are going to get ticketed, motorists are going to get ticketed, you know. And it was very effective.
Did you see the police officer sitting out on Mission Avenue at that crosswalk?
Yeah.
That was selective enforcement at the beginning of the year for failure to yield to pedestrians in crosswalk.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah.
Yeah. So those kinds of things. So yeah, so you're doing that. Other insights, comments?
Steve, can you talk a little bit about some ideas as to how, like, as a community, we can be more organized towards achieving our goals? I know we've got a lot of things that we have going on, but my personal opinion is that we're not functioning very well, especially around bicycling and pedestrian issues. The city, you know, Andy and I and the staff we have, we're more or less at capacity with what we can do. I know a lot of communities do have like a dedicated bicycling and pedestrian advocate or a person who's responsible for implementing. We don't have budget to have that, so we all try to do these things as time allows. But do you have ideas as to how we could get better organized around this issue?
So it really is helpful when you have somebody at the city level that is designated as the bicycle pedestrian coordinator, even if it's not 100% of their time. And maybe that person would be you, share with Andy, or maybe you have an intern that really can focus on this as, you know, because it involves this comprehensive approach. It really requires somebody who can work across departments, right? I mean, and be a silo buster. So having staff, I talk about the 3-legged stool. In the most effective communities, Davis is a small community, but they have a bicycle pedestrian program and they're serious about it. But in order to do that, they have elected officials. So one leg of the stool is dedicated city staff, typically somebody who has it in their job description that they will be considering and advocating for the needs of bicyclists and pedestrians. It's got to be in their job description. It can't just be something they will do once in a while. So that's one leg of the stool. The second leg is the elected officials, the enlightened officials. They care about this. They realize this reflects community values. People want choices in transportation. People want good health, etc. And they're willing to use their political will to make things happen. And then the third leg of that stool are the advocates in the community, the citizens who are bicycling already, or they want better conditions for their children. And when you have all those, and typically it is something that is, I mean, it's not just people coming to a city council meeting, but it's truly like you have a solid voice, a unified voice that's, you know, an organization is representing all these people out there. So you have an advocacy organization. And you kind of have, you have a, what's it called? You have a committee, but you also have a club that does some advocacy work, maybe not so much.
I mean, they're more represented
Yeah.
because we
Okay.
have a lot of, we have a lot of structures, they tend to be more represented.
I'd say they're not more off road, they do a lot of road rides, but there's not any yet.
They're not good.
Barely.
More recreational.
Yeah, it's meeting up for bike rides.
Yeah. So, but, I mean, that could sort of morph, they could have a chapter that really does more advocacy work, or it could just, so, what we're looking for with the application, though, we want to see somebody in staff that is assigned to these tasks, and then a bicycle advisory committee. And you had one when you were doing the master plan, you had it connected again before this meeting. So keep that going, because that really is kind of a key. People just sharing ideas. I mean, I'm here for a half a day. You have a lot more ideas, a lot more knowledge about your community than I do. And I can share with you stuff that's worked in other places, but I'm going to be gone. It's up to you to make things happen. And like a bike library, I mean, that's going to be something when I get my photos downloaded. I'm going to share that with communities. You're going to become famous, right? Because this is really an awesome thing. And no one told you to do that. Well, maybe somebody did, I don't know. But it's really cool. And so this is how it works. People like see stuff, and you went to Chicago, you come back, hey, why can't we do this on 4th Street or wherever? By the way, 4th Street, I think that, yeah, thank you so much. But having really like a cool signature project, you already have a comfortable lane, maybe continue that whole design all the way up and not worry about it being 2 lanes for cars. Just 1 lane for cars. Yeah, 8,000, 1 lane, that's pushing it. But you can do it. I digress. So the Bike Advisory Committee, the dedicated staff, and then having actual regular meetings that, you know, the whole staff accountable basically. Because it's easy, you got lots of things on your plate that you're trying to juggle. It helps that you have an engineer that actually gets it and rides a bike. A lot of communities don't have an Andy, so you're ahead of a lot of communities for that.
One thing that's been helpful with the bike and pedestrian plan that we did in 2010, the school travel plan we did in 2009, and then ultimately the city comprehensive plan is that's something I can point to when I do a project and they go, what the hell are you doing putting that bike lane on there? I can say, look, it's in the comprehensive plan, it's what the community wants. If you wanted to have an opinion, you should have been part of the plan. And so that gives me ammunition, it gives me protection basically when I do a project that has critics that say, you know, this is the stupidest idea ever. And I say, well, then you should have said that when we were making the plan.
And the other thing that goes along with that plan is this number 10. Do counts before and after, get baseline data, get crash data, so that you know that what you're doing is actually working. Success breeds success, but only if you can prove that it's successful, right? And a lot of you go into a public meeting, a lot of people say, oh, that was the stupidest thing that was ever done. And if you can show, well, actually, you know, we've increased bicycle ridership by this amount, crashes have gone down, et cetera, et cetera. It requires evaluation and documentation. So make sure you don't skip over that, because even in the application, we're going to be asking you lots of questions, like how many crashes occurred between bikes and cars over the last 5 years. If you don't know that answer, well, that shows that you're not doing a very good job of evaluating, analyzing what's going on in your communities. Hey, it's quieter now. That's great. Better acoustic.
Those
yes.
original
however many cities got designated in 2000, how many are still have the designation?
So every 4 years you have to reapply, and and you can lose people. So there have been communities that get the designation, you know, the first time they apply, or the second time they apply, but the third time they apply, they lose it. If you don't reapply every 4 years, then you will lose your designation. So you have to reapply, because you can't just rest on your laurels. Usually what happens is you apply the first time, and you know, you may or may not get it, but if you don't get it, you get this lots of feedback about what you should be working on. So then the second time that you apply, maybe it's 2 years later, maybe it's a year later, maybe it's 5 years later. Typically those cities that apply the second time do make it. But we have had some places, I hate to say it, that have taken the time to fill this thing out 3 times, and they're still not quite there yet. So, you know, it's just, we have to be, in order to have any integrity at all, we have to be, you know, like, well, we're not there. So. And we're looking at, okay, so your total number of off-street, your total number of on-street, how that compares to your total roadway network. You know, a lot of communities, this is what, like 1% of their total roadway network has bike facilities. And that's not very good, because most people don't want to ride on State Street, you know, to get to work. It doesn't really work. How many of you ride on State Street? I'm just curious. I mean, it's fine, sort of. It's scary. You don't really want to. I mean, so I haven't studied State Street, but State Street would be a good corridor. I mean, really, what you want is when somebody comes into your community, you want them to immediately just like feel like, okay, this is a cool place. This is different. This is a place where I feel like I could ride a bicycle. You know what I mean? Or walk. State Street doesn't give you that feeling. You know, when I came in last night, I thought, oh, geez, this is so cool. And there are places though, you automatically come into a place like, oh wow, look, there's bikes everywhere. You know, and there's bike facilities everywhere. So even if it's just narrowing all those travel lanes down to 10, 11 feet, squeezing in a 5-foot bike lane. I know it's probably a state highway, right? It used to be. Oh, so you could do some. I mean, I don't know what the ADT is. Maybe it's
28,000.
28. So that's tough. I mean, you know.
And we're looking at a DDI here in the next year or so,
I mean, that would be. I mean, you do have the off street that's, you know, not far from it.
you need the bike trail.
The bike trail that we were on. So.
I know you only have a few minutes
Yeah.
before you wrap up. Can you maybe just some general feelings about your initial impressions of Athens? We only got you out on the bike for about an hour or so.
I think you have tremendous potential, and you've got already the bones in place to, you know, and typically the bronze is 1.2% ridership. You're beyond that. You've got the demographics that you really should be at closer to 10% in a place like this during non-winter months. I think, because let's face it, I mean, you can get from one side of the town to the other in 6-7 minutes, right? 10 minutes at the most. And you've got a good, you know, you do have some hills, but so does San Francisco. Yeah. So no, I mean, you've got a lot of good things in place. I think if you were to submit something in February, I hate to say, you know, I mean, I think it would be hard not to give you probably that designation, but I think between now and next year, if you make better inroads in the schools, because that would be something we look at, get some LCIs, basically get some certified instructors so we can start offering regular classes, through community ed. It doesn't have to be a 9-hour, we do this thing called Traffic Skills 101. It's a 9-hour course. It's hard to get people there. But it can just be things during people's lunches, community ed, once a week. Incorporate rides, make it fun. You probably do some of that stuff already.
Who does the bike rodeo?
Have ice cream rides.
Who does the
There's
bike?
a great bike rodeo.
Who puts it on?
The college of medicine at OU put that on.
Okay.
And we were real involved in it.
And are you using, what materials are you using for that?
I don't think they're using materials for that. It's just something that they sort of put together. It's over 12 years ago now. And they do a little safety town.
Yeah.
And they have, they do it in the park, the big parking lot up there with the solar panels, and make huge chalk courses for the kids, and they increase in difficulty. It's a fun event. They don't go
Yeah.
through us, they don't like pass a test or anything. And we do free safety checks, and they write a grant and get helmets, and any kid or parent that needs a helmet, can get a helmet. And they usually get about, we'll get around 100 kids at the event.
So it sounds like when we do an application, we need to make sure we have those figures and everything in that application.
So let me give you the most recent platinum community, Fort Collins, had an 84K application. And they just got everybody together in their community who's doing anything at all with bicycling. And they started writing it all down. And they were surprised to find out all the different things that were going on. But they were able to document that they were doing this and this. It wasn't all the city of Fort Collins. It was mostly, or a lot of it was independent, bike shops, bike clubs, the breweries. New Belgium Brewery is a big mover and shaker in that community. So that's, you might want to start a committee, just a bicycle-friendly community task force, to start looking at the application and start collecting that information, figuring out what you need, what the holes are. I will send you a step-by-step sort of all that stuff so you have it handy. Did I do that yet? Maybe I don't. So I'll do that. You can look at, then you can decide if it even makes sense to apply in February or next August. But you don't do it because you want the designation. You do it because it's the right thing to do. You want your community to be bicycle friendly, whether we agree with you or not, right? This is the right thing to do.
So even if the designation were to give them excuse or not feedback.
Yes. So most of my travels now is giving bronze communities feedback on how they can get to silver or gold. Platinum communities, that's a lot of fun. Who will be the first one to get diamond, and what will that look like, and what will they need to do?
Is there a diamond?
There is a designation diamond, but no city is there yet. So there's 4 that are platinum. Anybody want to take a guess which cities are platinum right now?
Probably the city.
Davis, Portland.
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis is gold, like San Francisco, not quite platinum yet.
I just rode in
And Boulder.
Minneapolis a month ago. I rode, it was the 23 miles from St. Paul all the way through town and whatever. It was awesome.
Yeah, we've come a long way there. So Boulder, Portland, Oregon, Fort Collins, and then Davis, Portland. And then there's about 6 or 7 that are gold, working for platinum. Tucson,
What's the cost of the application?
Nothing. So it's just, we just do this because we're passionate about this. We're, at some point, we probably want to consider at least paying for all the staff time and everything else that goes on. As long as we have great support by people like Brett, we just pass on the love to all of you, right? Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think we need to wrap up. So
Yeah.
we're gonna hit the road for Dayton to do the same thing this afternoon. So, does anybody have a final comment or question for Steve or for anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.